Hi, and welcome to season 2 of Asteria's Combos, where we're community building the future. I'm your host, Asteria Elzea, hosting from unceded Tongva land. I identify strongly as a farm girl thanks to my childhood on the traditional lands of the Sauk and Fox peoples. I'm also chronically ill, non binary, neurodivergent, and polyamorous. And I'm a practicing witch. My life is super affected by my PTSD, as well as my white settler ancestry. I've spent the last decade training in human connection to connect to ourselves, to people different than us, and to be in community with each other. I'm highly trained in attachment and trauma informed group facilitation. My work history is widely varied: theatrical technician, special events coordination, bud tender, you know, at a dispensary, t-shirt shop manager, and data analyst. I hope this podcast is informed by all my experiences and my education, in addition to my guests. Season 2 has a thread flowing through it about how our hope for the future is learning to have more intentional collaboration with others. We must build coalitions, and we must look out for each other. Let's get down to business. Hi, welcome to Asteria's Convos. I'm excited today for our conversation. It's going to be a little bit different than what I normally do. And we're having Carmen Spagnola back on today, and I'm going to have her introduce herself with her identities. And then we're going to get into it.
It's really awesome to be back on the show, Asteria. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, I'm so excited.
I guess if I were to decide what identities I'm leading with today I'm very much leading with mother and householder, partner, family person. There's just lots happening in my family. My kid is 21-year-old ADHD somewhere on a schizophrenia spectrum, and an artist and a writer and a huge animal lover. And there's this saying that you're only as happy as your least happy child. And so I am on the wavelength of that identity today, sort of emerging from a bit of a hard time. So I think I'm emerging with, I'm arriving as like a mother who's feeling some relief and tenderness, pretty bone deep weariness a lot of the time. I'm also a new identity I have is as a steward of wild horses. So I've got a couple of wild horses that are being domesticated, that have been rescued from being culled. And that gives me time and space to think and be maybe a little less identified. I can put it that way. I'm just like kind of in the moment. So I'm feeling very connected to land and place. I'm also a woman who's turning 50 pretty soon. And I've wanted to turn 50 like since I was in my 30s. And now I'm here and life isn't quite congruent with what I thought it was going to look like and feel like and be like at this time, because it's just like hard for some of the things I've said. And so I'm like a person I'm not dreading turning 50, but I'm like sad. I'm not having like a big, huge shindig and stuff. So there's a little bit of like ennui. Professionally, I'm trauma recovery practitioner. I work very somatically. I work with somatic attachment, meaning helping people actually feel a sense of safeness and security within themselves and with others. And I'm also newly co-founding a worker co-op that's a small independent press called Ninth House Press. And I'm going to be publishing radical liberatory work. So I got like a lot on the go, and I love all of these identities, and somehow they all fit together in this one body. And I'm so grateful for my life. Yeah. So that's who I am.
I love that so much. You're doing so much. And like, how wonderful is it to be grateful for who you are? Yeah. Okay. So I brought you on the show today because we have mismatched opinions about hope.
Okay. I like this framing so far.
Yeah. And I want you to define like what you think hope is and your opinion on it.
Oh gosh, part of me is like, you go first. What do you think? Okay, no, I'm happy to share.
Okay.
I think that I would say that like the popular understanding of the word hope is we are desiring for something to happen. We have a desire for a different reality or lived reality or outcome than what presently appears to be or on track. So I think hope, at least what I think people are saying when they talk about hope, is that they desire for something to be different from how it is. And they hope for it to be different in like a positive way, in some way that's going to be ameliorated, or that there's something about now that could be improved. And so they have a certain kind of faith, or again, a yearning, a desire, a longing for a different and presumably better condition. That's what I think hope is. Are we tracking the same so far?
Yeah, I think that's a fine definition of hope.
Okay. And then I think, okay, if I were to summarize my manner of approach with hope, I would say some people need it and some people don't. And I don't actually think that's important to change. I've been in spaces where the theory of change is that people have to have hope in order to be able to face the future or take another step or that sort of thing. And I just think there's so many examples where that's just absolutely not true. And as a person who I would say generally I don't feel a lot of hope, as you've heard, I love my life. I'm not nihilistic, and I'm also not defeatist. I think I have a lot of, purpose and meaning and contribution, all these other things, even though I don't have hope. And even though I don't think, I mean, I hate to say this, but I don't think things are going to get better. When I say things, I mean generally, I think there are predicaments, and also I think there are likely extremely negative outcomes that not only are not going to get better in like my lifetime for sure, and probably not my child's lifetime. I think like intergenerational lifetimes before it, amelioration or things improving is going to be even on the table. But that doesn't that doesn't change my life knowing that, you know. I'm so some people need hope, and if you got it and you can get it and it helps you engage with life, great. Do it. Have it. But I I just think it's naive to think that everybody needs hope and that we should put a lot of energy in trying to cultivate or manufacture hope, because a whole bunch of us don't actually need it and we're still working towards the same goals.
Yeah. I think of hope as a reason to have motivation to move
Mhm.
forward. And
I disagree, but I'm glad that you have
yeah, so
if it
that's like,
helps you.
what's your motivation to move forward?
Integrity, my
Integrity.
values. Yeah, integrity.
Okay.
And, my politics, my values, my sense of my morality. Like I'm very much in the so do you know Antonio Gramsci? He was like that Italian communist. He's an anti-fascist fighting against Mussolini. He got
Mhm.
imprisoned for his beliefs, and he basically talked about like he coined this idea of cultural hegemony, that people in power keep power not just through like laws or force, but through shaping society's cultural norms, just every part of it, right? Media, schools, universities. You have to control the entire. It's totalitarianism. You have to control the entire mindset of the populace. And personally, I think capitalism has traded in hope for a long time. And so I think hope has very much been appropriated by capitalism as like, well, you need it and you can cultivate it. Antonio Gramsci, his kind of little catchphrase that I live by is pessimism of the intellect, but optimism of the will. So I don't have hope, but there's something that I think is optimistic in having the will to fight nonetheless, even when things are hopeless, even if you're going to lose. It's honorable to resist. It's honorable to fight. So my integrity is aligned in that way. So I'm still going to fight, even if I think I'm going to lose. And I think there's no hope of us, unseating this dictator or whatever it is. There's something almost joyful, if not hopeful, in saying, fuck you, make me, I'm not going to go down like that.
Yeah. It's such an interesting perspective because, like, if I was hopeless, if I didn't have hope, I would probably not get out of bed.
Mm.
Or I might go, yeah, I would not get out of bed. I would, if I didn't have hope, things would be almost impossible for me to do because, like, why? What do we, what could go on if I don't have hope that something will be better sometime?
Well, I guess the thing is you would never know though. What if so what difference would it make to know that? Because if you're hoping, but you're like, it might not happen in my lifetime, but it could happen in someone else's lifetime after me. Well, you're not going to know that if it does or doesn't. So it's kind of like, is that really going to make any difference as to whether or not you get out of bed? Or do you actually have to have the proof? You do all kinds of things all day long that, you know, move you through life. And some of them you're going to know for sure, yeah, that's good for me. And therefore I'm benefiting. But a bunch of them you won't. You won't really know if it's good to like brush your teeth every day because maybe you were genetically gifted with great teeth. You could maybe never brush your teeth, but you do it anyway because it's like in alignment with a certain level of self care. You're not just like, oh, I really want to have, you know, great teeth in my head. And there's probably a part of you that's like, and maybe someday I'll have done all this work and I'm still going to have, I'm going to be like a gap tooth old lady because there isn't going to be good dental care in the apocalypse. But I'm still going to do the things, even though this is going to go away, right? You still live your life, even though you know you're going to die. So I kind of feel like, what difference does it make if you know that you're you that things are going to change by the time you get to the end of your life? What if this is it?
What if things are better around me because of the little actions that I take
Yeah, I mean,
every
I
day
definitely
because
think
I
that's
have hope?
true.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I guess what I'm saying is like, even if you don't
Yeah.
have hope, you're, first of all, it doesn't matter if you do actions or not. You could be in bed,
Yeah.
wasting away and do nothing at all, quote unquote, productive with your life, according to capitalism. And your existence is still totally delightful because you're Asteria and you have this like set of experiences that you package into your presentation and that you bring into all your relationships. And that exists whether or not fascism, you know, knocks down the door or doesn't. So it's kind of like your inherent delightfulness is the thing that's already impacting people, even if you're hopeless. So
Yeah.
so you don't need hope to have that impact. It's already happening because of your politics, because of your inquisitive mind, because of your desire to share the things you learn. Those things exist whether or not you feel good about life or not, And so I kind of feel like it's great for you if
Yeah.
you feel like you can
You,
access more energy
yeah.
and more vitality to be able to move forward, that's great.
Mhm.
I just don't believe that it's necessarily true that you would have less impact if you had less hope.
Well, what part of your thought process is that not everybody needs hope because you don't,
Well, the Dutch
right?
in World War II had this saying that hope is not necessary to proceed. And they were just like, wow, Hitler, motherfucker. We are totally being, this is bad. But again, it was like that kind of moral alignment where they were like, and yet we will fight, we will resist. And, enough of that resistance, eventually it did kind of turn the tide, and the Allied powers ultimately prevailed. I don't think any of them were hopeful, but they just put one foot in front of the other. The people who were hopeful and they put one foot in front of the other, great. We're so glad. Thank you for carrying that momentum. Thank you for carrying the people who also feel like they need to have hope or they're not going to put one foot in front of the other. But it would be so great if people would just get in the game, whether or not they have hope. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like, I don't want you in bed. We have a military to resist. We have an occupation to resist. Maybe it'll never get better, but it'll definitely never get better if you're waiting for hope.
Yeah. I don't have to wait for hope, though. It's a seed. So
Where do you find the seeds?
I find the seeds in just everyday actions and interactions with people. And then that collects. Maybe I give myself hope by
Mhm,
by my actions that are in alignment and in integrity, like you said.
mhm,
So like for my friend looks out for me and is like, "What are you doing for dinner?" Or mm, I don't know. I say we save our cans separately from our other recycling because people come through our neighborhood looking through trash for cans. And when I'm able to hand it directly to somebody, I don't actually know what impact that is making on his life, but I hope it's helping.
mhm,
And so I find the seeds in the stuff that people do on the daily, and I hope that we could grow
mhm,
those.
mhm. I mean, I think I
Just
have similar sentiments. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah. Well, just like planting a garden, for
Mhm.
the future, you hope that the seeds will come up. You plant in the fall, and you're not going to see till spring what's going to happen. But all those seeds had to be
Right.
planted because of hope.
See, that's the thing, though, is that you hope they're going to come up. That's true, because there's a whole bunch of things you can't control, like the
Hmm.
weather.
Yeah,
But And this is where I think capitalism has, tried to erase the friction in our lives, and sort of
sure.
hope gets kind of pulled into that it's like, well, you can't just put a happy face sticker on an empty tank of gas. You can't just put seeds in the ground and hope that the weather's going to take care of all the watering and the weeding and the timing that you needed to get right, or some frost cover because something unexpected happened. You actually have to put some muscle into it. And so I think you know, there's maybe various calibers of hope, and if I'm gonna endorse a hope, it's got to be pretty muscular. It can't be
Yeah,
some thin, frail kind of I want no friction in my life kind of thing. And I do think that there are areas where in my life where I do feel a certain kind of something that's either, if not hope, it's adjacent to it. But again,
yeah,
I would say that's a little bit closer to pride for me, where I think about collapse and I think about, I still want to send the best qualities of humanity into the future. I don't think we're all going to make it. In fact, I think most of us won't, but a bunch of us will. That's just kind of how ecosystems work. There's going to be enclaves where there isn't, where the entire human race, I mean, barring asteroid hit or something, but it's like if collapse is hastened because of social, environmental factors, which we can see is happening, and that creates widespread disease and kinds of things, war, where we have mass die off. This is collapse. This is what it is, converging emergencies. There's still going to be pockets of thriving humanity and civilization. And I want to send a time capsule into the future of our best selves, our art, our creativity, the way we love, what we've learned, all of those things. So some people might look at that and think that's hopefulness. I don't know that I think it's hopeful so much as I just see that as that's just statistics. That's just math. That's just pattern recognition that like that's the likely outcome. And it's going to be so brutally awful for so many people. But for some people, I want to like send them like a love letter into the future. I do hope that like my kid makes it, because those are good. Those are good qualities. I want that type of quality in our human relating. And so again, I don't really think so much of that as hope, but I think of it as like pride. I think of it as, again, integrity. I think of it as dignity, that it would be so undignified if only the asshats made it into the future.
What you're saying reminds me so much of Layla F. Saad's work, How to Be a Good Ancestor,
Oh.
which I read during the pandemic, and I definitely have brought forward into my work. Like, I want to be a good ancestor. I want people to look back at me and be like, wow, we're proud of that person and that person existed.
Totally.
And that is a pride and dignity thing. But I guess part of why I wanted to have you on is that I do think we have converging opinions ultimately, but they come from different places. And I think that's interesting to examine because I think of hope as like, I guess not that hear what you're saying about capitalism because, like, yeah, they give us this thin version of like, good's always going to win,
Mhm.
which is not accurate and not realistic. But I think of hope as a more like gritty, hardworking thing that hope backs action and action is backed by hope, you know? So it's what you're saying that we have to do the actions. We have to be the good ancestor. We have to keep moving forward for the future and the hope that things will get better and
Mm.
the likelihood, the predictability at the same time. Like, but over generations. If you look back at generations, there's a point where private property was invented and that was stupid and horrible. But, and it's ruined things for all of us into the future. But over the last several hundred years, things have gotten better and we're working our way out of it. And there were a lot of innovations and inventions that you can see over those 100 years, and it's gotten faster and faster and faster the way things have gotten better and the ways things have gotten worse.
Yeah, I'm like, what's gotten better? I'm like trying to track with you. What are we talking
What?
about? Are we talking about
That's
like
gotten better?
mortality? Are we talking?
Yeah.
Yeah, like what
Mortality.
metrics are we?
What
But is
metrics are
that
we
a
looking
good
at?
metric? Is longer mortality good? It's not, because look at us. We've now we have overshoot in our ecosystem. We're meant
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
to last not much longer than the average animal. There are very few animals, and certainly very few mammals that live like the length of lives that we live. We are anomalous, and so I would argue that like what you're describing is like things have gotten better for us. I'm like, well, only if you center humans as the people, as the primary species for whom things should get better. But I'm so surprised by this in a way, Asteria, because I know you're also an adherent to philosophies of like memento mori, right?
Yeah.
That it's like that there's not that's like such a part of just accepting what is. And there's even just something like life extension or less disease or pain management or education, all of those things. It's like, but by what metric are we saying that's good? It's a capitalist, white supremacist, imperialist, like growth metric. Whereas if we went to
Okay,
like
but
and I'm not
mortality
saying we should
wasn't,
be Luddites, but
yeah,
okay, that's not the
mortality
best one.
wasn't going to be my main one. Actually,
Okay,
social issues was what I was thinking of more, right?
okay, such as.
Such as we have not grappled 100% with white supremacy yet. Not saying that. But
No. Yeah.
over the last 200 years as a country, we went from like, oh, we couldn't even conceive of putting slaves in the Constitution as people. We, the people, we didn't conceive of that ever, holding women or people of color or anyone but white up, like men that owned land.
Mhm. But before they owned the land, we did, right? Like we had matriarchal societies. We had, so it's not that we've
Yeah.
actually gained rights. We've not actually gained rights. We actually lost a bunch of rights, and now we're
But
coming back into something that's more, again, we're fighting for it again, right? So
yeah.
we say, oh, we gained the right to vote only after we lost our essential dignity. So that's not
Yes.
really, you'd have to go back further, right? So I mean, the conversation gets like way bloated
Way
when we
bigger.
bring that
Yeah.
in, but I still sort of feel like, and so if we are like, oh, but so many things have gotten better, so we have to continue to work because they can get better. If I were to take away the improvement by taking away the part where it got bad, wouldn't that be a better situation? I mean, like, and so there's this kind of general acceptance that we started from zero at capitalism, which is absolutely not true. There was like indigenous
Yeah.
societies in all over the world. So it's kind of like it's not gotten better. It's literally gotten worse. And so anything that we're doing to get more in right size and right relationship is necessarily going to make us humans smaller in our footprint, smaller in our quote unquote sophistication, smaller. It's going to go back to more of a homeostasis that the planet can actually support. And so the question is like, well, if it's making something better, like what does that even mean? What does that
What
even mean? What paradigm are we in? What
where things
paradigm are we in?
yeah.
Yeah. So I'm kind of like, I actually don't think it would be bad if 200 years from now, or even 20 years from now, we live more like we did 200 years ago.
Oh, I think absolutely.
Right. There would be, yeah, less mortality, there'd be more disease, there'd be all those things. But I
Yeah.
actually think the soft animals of our bodies could cope with the world a lot
Yeah.
better. Like
I've
our
been
scales
yearning
are
for
just way
the
out of whack.
I've been yearning for the hillside since I was a kid, and I read Heidi all the time, and I, like, collected copies of Heidi, and I was
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, I just need to be hanging out with my goats on the mountainside, and, like,
Totally.
can you leave me
Totally.
alone for the rest of the time?"
Totally. Totally. So I think this is where collapse or sort of capitalism has sort of taken the idea of hope and used it as currency. And as you say, it's like they give us this thin version, the simulacrum of improvement in different areas. But actually, what's happened is, like the horse is out of the barn. The f- the dam has burst, and there's been such deep rot at the core of so many humans because of capitalism, the disconnection, white supremacy, lack of belonging, all of those things, that it's like, what would I possibly hope for that can even be imagined at this time? Like nothing. What I actually would like is to orient more towards our values. I would like to orient towards values of like dignity for all, of being in integrity, of reciprocity and interdependence. Those things matter more than any, mm, like, kind of, that is utopic for me. And so, what that means I'm saying yes to, though, is that a whole bunch of us aren't going to make it. And that's going to happen in a whole bunch of different ways. And I don't want, I'm not an accelerationist. I'm not like, let's burn it down and really like bring tons of harm to people. That's not at all what I'm saying. Let me be totally clear. But what I'm saying is that the internal implosion, this catabolic collapse where it's like we can't support these structures anymore, it doesn't make me feel hopeless that everything I've ever known will probably not last. It makes me feel grief. It makes me feel sadness. But I feel like 100% okay with this not continuing, and that maybe my efforts will be totally Sisyphean. And, and again, I guess this is the other thing about hope is so even the things that I'm working towards, if they don't work out, I still kind of feel like, well, that's okay. That means that an entirely different thing is happening. And at least it's not imperialist white supremacist capitalism. That's kind of my feeling. Like, so that sounds pretty dark, I guess, to people, but I feel maybe it's my animism where I'm like, let's say humans don't make it. My kid doesn't make it. We all, perish. The animist in me is also kind of like, well, okay. Like, okay,
Yeah.
that's how that goes. I would still be creating beauty. I'd still be baking cakes. I would still be taking care of everyone I love. Even seeing the asteroid coming at us, I would still be making a nice dinner about it. Like it just doesn't change how I move through the world, whether there's better outcome or not. I don't know. Is that a
Yeah.
bummer? Like,
Well, think that, well, depopulation is definitely a bummer, ultimately. But I am hearing, I think, that you feel that because depopulation is a expected outcome of collapse, that you don't think that's hopeful, that there will be the daisies that come through the cracks on the other side, that we will have something different on the other side. And it doesn't matter to me whether I go through it, whether I survive, because what I've thought and the impact I've had on people around me and the impact I've hoped those people have on the people around them will have gone forward and created as much impact as I possibly could have.
hmm. And so that's hopeful for you, is what you're
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That there will be, I guess one of my favorite things is solar punk.
Tell me what this is, because this is like the fourth time I've heard about it this week. And I'm like, I
Okay.
feel like I can grasp the contours of that, but I don't know what it is really.
Well, eventually we're going to have this collapse. There will be less population. We will prioritize environmentalism because it's a necessity, because it becomes absolutely necessary. And solar punk is the idea of vines and all over cities, of like planting gardens in the sidewalks, of these structures are going to remain because we've built them in a permanent way, the physical structures of the buildings and stuff. But we're going to take them, we're going to let nature take it back. We're going to take them back for people. Also, a lot of solar punk is related to cyberpunk and goes with the idea of we're going to figure out technologies to make solar power work better, which I don't really have a comment on if that is or is the right direction for things to go.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea that we're going to let nature to take back the cities, that feels like the right place to go. Or the idea that we're going to be that the West is going to be so far out of our depth with heat and stuff that we have to finally bring back indigenous practices, and we have to bring back or just take advice from the Middle East, where they have homes that can be completely cooled without anything, and we stop building in this disposable way, and we live more in alignment with the planet and our values and smaller lives.
Mm-hmm.
That all means a lot to me.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I mean, I think capitalism saves me again because I don't have the money for that to not be the case. It's I would love to have, solar technology where we are out here, where I live on Sea Oak territory, known as the Okanagan. It's like Canada's only desert. And yeah, they had pit houses, and that was the way that you could have insulation in the winter and cool in the summer and also protect yourself from wildfires, as if you basically lived underground. And as we're looking at like putting structures up and having more people live here, more and more it's like, well, we could dig into that mountainside
Yeah.
because, like we don't have the money for lumber and, infrastructure. It's like, yeah. So I I enjoyed the idea of solar punk or indigenous ways or however they intersect. I'm not sure if that's like a literary or like sociology kind of term, but or maybe it's like an art punk kind of term. I don't really
Yeah.
know, but it's all it sounds like, yeah, that's living by necessity
Yeah.
seems pretty much right to me. Sounds right to me, you know.
I might have integrated indigenous things into solar punk because that's the way I live my life. And I've like thought
Mm,
about solar punk for 10 years. And it's becoming a more and more popular term, as you
mm,
said. And I used to have a sweatshirt, or like there's a concept called hope punk that's really close to my heart. And I thought about like calling my business Hope Punk, and like that idea that, hope is there being a punk rock
mm.
and, you know, against the system. And
Right. Well, and I think
yeah,
cynicism isn't enough anymore. We can't just be like sarcastic and cynical. So,
no,
that's also
cynical.
not helpful.
Yeah, cynicism wears me out. Like,
Yeah.
okay, don't do anything. I
Yeah.
gotta go. I've got
Yeah.
stuff to do. Like, cynicism gives you such an easy out to not do anything.
Yeah.
And that upsets
Absolutely.
me.
Yeah, for sure. And it's also just so boring. Like it's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, so you have no personality." Okay, that's basically what you're saying to me is like you you are not going to take any intimacy risks with me. You're going to armor yourself. You're basically just like the dry acerbic, you know, humor
Yeah.
married to beans and bunkers. Like that's like not the that again is just like totally antithetical to my integrity and my morality. So like I definitely I don't want to like shit on hope. I think again if people need hope to get them out of bed, then like great. I can see it working incrementally. I just think that at some point I would I think you need to have again something more skeletal, something more kind of like foundational because it actually is going to get worse. In our lifetimes, it's going to keep getting worse. And if having these sort of like Sisyphean tasks before you, if you can't kind of bring joy and creativity and some kind of spiritedness
Yes.
to the task, even if it's doomed to fail, then like, again, you're just so boring. I just don't even, why would I spend any time with you at all? Right. I'd way rather be with the Hope Punk crowd, but
Yeah.
who's going to pick them up when it's like, actually, it got worse? Like it actually got harder, actually got whatever. Like I think you have to the process has to be enough. The process or again the dignity of it needs to be
Yeah. I
enough because I think in our lifetime there will be very few like great victories.
think that's a great point. I'm also like wanting to bring Afrofuturism in here because I think
Mm.
there is some hopefulness to Afrofuturism. I think it's part of the foundation. Like, you have to start from the reality of things are terrible and this is how it's going to be. Cool.
Mhm.
What do you
And a
do with that?
people totally and like
Yeah.
Afrofuturism, indigenous stories, absolutely, because these are people who have been through collapse, genocide, like the ends of their
Through an
worlds
apocalypse.
through an apocalypse. And so there's so much to learn there. And, again, like some of them may be like, oh my God, this white lady, 50-year-old white lady needs to like shut it because she doesn't know, right? How important hope is. And
Mhm.
again, maybe that's true.
One,
Maybe I'm using the wrong words for it, but there
uh,
there's also like this nuance here of like who gets to have hope. And I would say, hey, folks who've lived through an apocalypse in your culture, you get to have hope because you've had that experience, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and then definitely I could shove it as a 33-year-old non-binary person, but like I'm trying to use my hope to like
Yeah.
to keep learning and keep learning and keep learning and teaching, learning and teaching, and then hopefully things
Yeah.
get better eventually sometime.
Yeah, I mean, and
Yeah.
let's say if we're talking about like it depends what you put your hope into. Like I'm not superstitious about the word hope that I'll never pick it up and use it in a sentence. I absolutely
Yeah.
do. Like I do. I leave calls in the Numinous Network being like, I feel hopeful. And it's like this is awesome and weird and not my normal state of being, but I love it, you know. And I do hope that we have more. I do hope that my you know, I especially hope for other people.
Yeah.
Maybe that's like another positionality thing that I don't know what it is with me, but that I'm like, kind of doesn't matter if I have hope, but I'm happy for like Asteria to have hope. I want you to have hope, right? I want you to have experiences that are hopeful because you're getting enough dose, you're getting it, it's giving you oxygen, it's giving you life, it's giving you vitality. And so I guess there's another way of thinking of it is like if hope is almost like an energy, it's a nutrient that we need to have. I'm kind of like, we're all in like the work camp or like the resistance underground or whatever it is. And I'm like, no, you can have my ration of hope because you need it more than I do, right? I'm like, I'm in a different place in my life. I have different I have different priorities and I'm trying to prepare for like the winter time of my life. I'm trying to prepare for elderhood. And so I don't need the hope in the same way that the young people do, right? So it's like, go ahead. Have your hope and eat it too. Like have a great time with hope. It will probably get more mileage when you're younger anyway, you know? But
Mhm.
now I'm kind of like, huh, I I don't need to me it's like it's resisting I would put it in the same category. Okay, I'm really gonna inflame people with my like second wave feminist stuff here, but uh, I would kind of put hope in the same category for people of my age in the same category as like getting a lot of filler in your face or getting a facelift in your 40s or like just anything to basically say yes I want to succeed in capitalism or like it's like you're going to die anyway no matter how much is in your face. You're going to die anyway no matter what you look like. And in fact, you could be dying sooner than you think. So just fucking enjoy your life. Just like lay it down. So I kind of think like I don't need hope to like will me forward. I don't need things to look or be better. I would like that for other people, but I want them to
Yeah.
just enjoy their life, you know? I don't want
Yeah.
young people to be like spending all their time going, how do we course correct from where, older generations have left us? It's like
Yes. Yeah.
y'all keep the hope and y'all keep working towards something good. I'm going to give you a reason to hope. I'm gonna be sand in the eyes of the Gestapo. I'm gonna be sugar in the gas tank of the military. I'm gonna be sand in the gears of the approaching tanks. That's more interesting to me than like contemplating do I feel hopeful or have hope for the future. I it's just not maybe like I guess I'm like going to parse it a little bit here and sort of split hairs. It's like I feel totally comfortable with you talking about hope because you're in your 30s. You probably do need you're looking at the time horizon, it's really far away. I'm like less than
There's
halfway to the end of my time horizon, as far as I know, God willing, whatever, God is willing. And so it's like so boring to me to have a conversation like that with somebody who can't even face their own death and like can't
right.
even age gracefully. You can't even
Yeah, yeah,
just
yeah.
let your face be your fucking face. You call
I
yourself
think
an artist, that kind of thing. So,
the the equation of hope with facelifts is so like my mother is so steeped in capitalism and facelifts. And she came to my wedding. Just, she had done so much work to herself that people kept asking me what she did to her face. And she just
Oh,
opened a business called Defy Time Aesthetics.
oh
She's like
dear.
literally out here trying
Yeah.
to defy time because
Yeah,
capitalism has sold her that as a necessity.
totally. And like it's so based in a fear of the future, right? I
Yeah,
need the
not,
future to be something just like the past, something that I can totally recognize and I need to
yes.
totally belong. And it is such a like it's a fear of death and that fear of the future. And so like I need to have some kind of proof that the future is going to be beautiful or bright or shiny or whatever. It's like that's all kind of a piece. And I'm so I'm weary and I'm wary of all of that. And I feel like you and I can have a real conversation about the utility of hope or the purposes of hope because it just makes more sense. We're like philosophically and politically aligned,
Mm,
but I think generally the conversation about hope is so steamrolled by capitalism and fear of death and fear of the future and that the future is a promise to be brighter and shinier, just better than today, just like today, only brighter and shinier and like more extended and more prosperous and wealthy. And it's like, we're just on
no.
different planets.
But we as millennials were sold that the future would be brighter and shinier and we could just work hard.
Mhm.
And I like that for today's youth, they're already like, that's not what it's going to be. So how do I
Mhm.
deal with it?
Mhm.
Um, okay, I think we're coming to where we should wrap it.
Okay.
But I wanted to talk about conflict and how this whole episode has been a disagreement between us. And I learned last year that some people experience disagreement as conflict,
Mhm.
which shocked me because I'm like, oh no, people just disagree. And I wanted to bring in here the idea of that you asked me about recently on your podcast, which was coalition building. And that like if you and I start from a place where we're like, we have both different opinions on the value of hope, and then we can't move on from there, or we can't work with our opinions of hope together, that then we don't get to either of our dreams.
Mhm.
We don't get to the
Mhm.
future, to the being good, a good ancestor part. And so I wanted people to hear an example of disagreement between two people who know, like, I know you have the best in mind, and I have the best in mind, and ultimately we're aligned on what
Mhm.
we value.
Mhm.
So it is that it's a big values piece.
It is a big values piece. And I think that, that it makes total sense to me that there will be people who will say, we can disagree as long as your disagreement isn't about my dignity, my
Yeah.
rights, my that sort of thing. And it's like that's such a great baseline, right? And so instead of thinking, and so many people are against me because their differing opinion, is impacting my rights. It's like, yeah, that is true. But the problem but those people then don't even matter. They don't need to be in our sight lines because their quote unquote difference of opinion takes away my right to life. But actually the problem is way more in kind of like the big tent of the left, that it's like if the vernacular I'm using is offensive to you, and you're like, well, you're not allowed to use that. And now we have to have an entire accountability process. And basically, you have to be browbeaten into speaking the way I do or seeing this the way I do. I mean, we're not talking about taking away people's rights. We're talking about a very subjective experience,
Concept.
right? A very subjective concept. And it doesn't necessarily speak to like again an undermining of our shared values. Like it can be shocking to hear somebody use language or have a concept that you're just like, whoa, 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 that's that's kind of racist, or like that's super ableist, or that's whatever. But if you can tell somebody that and have them go, not be so defensive that it becomes an argument and now we have to like dig into our positions, then that tells you there's a genuine desire, right? There's a genuine a coalition that could be formed there. And I think that's actually what's much more concerning is there is a lot of white supremacy on the left in politics. There's such a it's like shocking how many people talk about believing in abolition and then like totally police your language and your behavior, and if you don't show up a certain way, and then you know, you can't be overwhelmed and tired and, you know, disabled or whatever. You have to have the ability to be like, right, 10 toes down on top of it on what the language is right now. And, you know, and I'm not saying I like the word woke. I want to be woke. Tell me where I'm not woke. I want to be woke, right? But also I may actually disagree because my position is like, oh, but I live in rural Canada. This is how we do things. Or I've learned from Indigenous elders. Oh, you've learned from Black socialist feminists. They don't actually always agree on things. And I'm kind of more aligned over here. But we can all agree that we may have different manners of approach, but we all want to move towards this liberatory future, right? Like, we should be able to agree about that, right? And for whatever reason, that seems very, very difficult for some people. And in each case, honestly, if it's not like a white supremacy problem, just gonna say it. It's a class problem. Like
Yeah.
you have to be of such an entitled class to think everybody has the same capacity and education and ability to function in your world. And like, it's like intense, the class difference that doesn't get acknowledged, that it's like, I don't know. Anyway,
Well, and
I'm rambling, but yeah.
the ableism piece comes into what you were just saying. Like, in the West, we kind of treat disability like something that'll never happen to us, when in reality, disability is going to happen to everyone at some point in their lives for some amount of time.
Mhm.
And so if we would just build our movements, our structures physically to include disabled people, then we're including everyone. If we could put like
Mhm.
captions on the movie screens, like, I know a lot of people find that distracting, but there's so many more than just like extremely deaf people that would be benefited by that.
Oh,
Like,
we watch with
just,
captions all the time.
I watch
It's
the
like
captions constantly.
I can't think because there's dishes in the sink. Of course, I need to have captions on this video. You know,
I'm like
yeah.
auditory processing issues like crazy. And when people have different accents, it really throws me off or whatever. So I watch with captions every time. And we have to build with accessibility in mind
Mhm.
because, like, what if you went to a concert last night and now you can't hear the movie?
Totally, right? Yeah, I think this and the ability to like style flex, I think is good too. Like there are things as a facilitator,
Yeah.
this is always like a bit of a tricky one, but it's like I learned this very good life lesson from like an 8-year-old. This was
I love that.
15, 20 years ago. Yeah. And it was so much about, well, I'm just going to tell you the little story, and like
Tell me
I'm
the little
embarrassed
story.
about it now, but it was my old high school friend. I was meeting her kids. It was like my 25-year high school reunion or 30-year, something like that. And I met her kids, and they were like homeschooled or unschooled or like partially went to Waldorf or something like that. I can't remember what it was,
Yeah.
but her son was showing me around their house, and I said something. I can't remember what I said. I said maybe I said like the R word. I don't know what I said, but I said something that was like a name or just a little sarcastic or something like that. And he just said to me, "Oh, Carmen, in this land, we don't use that kind of language. What we would say in this land is we would say that person is, so silly. That person likes to have a goofy time or da 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 da." And I kind of guffawed. I was like, "Oh, in this land," I said again, something kind of sarcastic, because I'm like, I don't know, pretty rough, pretty, again, urban, cynical, new parent, totally just learning about this kind of thing. And his mom kind of was behind him and was looking at me and was like, "Yeah, that's just, we don't use sarcasm in our house." That's what he means when he says this land. It's kind of like our world, our land. It's the land we live in, but it's also our home. And it's like the place we live. And almost like now I look back and it's like, oh yeah, you had almost like a cultural way of being. And this is the land that culture arose from. And your 8-year-old was just communicating with me "Oh, in this land, we don't use we don't talk that way about people." And I was embarrassed at just how sort of clumsy I was and, I don't know, rude, déclassé, whatever it was. But I got over it. And I've never forgotten that it was just a nice, innocent way of saying, "Oh, that's not how we roll." And so Ruben and I, my husband and I, have that same kind of manner of approach as much as possible of that is not to our taste, or that is that we have with the Scottish and the Celtic people would call a very strong sense of the fitness of things. And that is not in alignment with our sense of the fitness of things. I was like, that's not how we behave. But we try to bring people into our fitness of things. This is how we are. And if I was to go to their land, their home community, their house, their place of work, whatever it is, I'm a visitor. However they want to talk to each other is fine. I'm just visiting. Oh, I'm going to their land, which has more Italian influence. So they kind of just yell at each other and over top of each other, and they're super sarcastic all the time. And it's like, oh my gosh, that is not in alignment with me. But I'm not gonna be you know, we don't use sarcasm at somebody else's dining table. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I just think of it as oh, I'm visiting in a different land, and they use these terms. I had thought about this a lot with with disability justice, right? That some people will say it's crip justice, and they are like, yeah, I'm crip. I'm a cripple. I am disabled. Same with substance use communities. Some are like, I am an addict. Or
Mhm.
others are like, I am addicted, or I struggle with substance use. There's all these different nuances. I'm not going to get super pissed about it if I'm not in that culture and community. It's like, oh, you're coming and you're speaking in a certain kind of way, and I'm going to do my best to just go, oh, that's how that is, rather than universalize what's right or wrong, what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, because that actually isn't impinging on other people's right to life or enjoyment of life. It might be very offensive or triggering for you, but you know, if a Black person's going to use the N word in their music, have at her. I'm not going to be like, we need to
Yeah.
boycott, So I find that policing can happen a lot over things that are actually not material to our shared
Yeah.
goals. So it's kind of like, if you
It's like in
want
that
hope, I don't
LGBT
need to shit on your hope.
Yeah. It's like in the LGBTQ community, how many of those letters do you include when you LGBTQIA plus? How many of those letters do you include?
Yeah.
And also the word queer, like some people are like, I super identify as queer and I want to go to queer stuff and I want to whatever. And other people are like, the history of the word queer is that
Mhm.
it was super derogatory and often a death threat. And you shouldn't be using that word.
Yeah.
And I hear you. Let's just get
Mhm.
together.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
totally. Let's come to the smallest unit of society is the meal, right? So, like, let's
Yes.
get together, let's have a meal, let's have some drinks, let's have some conversation. And I'm not saying that that's gonna fix everything, and sometimes there are aspects where you're just like, "No." Like, there are definitely
There. Oh, yeah.
figures, public figures, I don't really know them personally, but there are figures who may hold shared politics in one area, but in another area, they're so transphobic or something like that, that I'm just like, "Yeah, no, I don't wanna work with you. Like, forget it.
Yeah.
I'm not buying your shit, I'm not talking about you, I'm not invoking your name." And I everybody can choose, but we're talking about matters of degree, right? And those are pretty extreme outliers. Most of us mainly are gonna be like, "Oh, do I want to socialize with my neighbor who has, like, some kind of flag on his truck or something?" It's like, hmm, maybe I still do because, like, I'm thinking of my actual neighbor. It's like, but he knows a lot about horses. I
Yeah.
really need that help. And, like,
Like,
I
for me,
think
it's my
ultimately
actual family, right?
yes, yeah.
And,
Mhm,
like, I still wanna socialize with my family, and I still think they're ultimately good people. But there are lines I'm gonna take where I'm like,
mhm.
"Oh, yeah, while I'm around,
Yeah,
you don't talk like that
yeah, yeah.
because this is my land as well."
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Mm.
Well, I've appreciated the conversation, and I know
Yeah.
that I may have said things in a flippant way in the past that could be offensive or make you feel like I think people who have hope are less than. And as I
Oh,
mature, I want to be less and less like that, right? It's like have hope, have your hope. It's beautiful on you. It looks good on you. I think it looks ridiculous on some people, and
yeah.
it feels ridiculous on me. It's not where I want to put my energy,
And
but
that's as
I don't
okay as long
I
as
don't
we're
want to
both backed
withhold
up.
it from anyone.
Yeah, that's okay as long as we're both backed up by action.
Exactly. Yeah, I appreciate people like you with a muscular hope.
Yeah. Okay. Thank
Mhm.
you so much for coming on, Carmen, and I
Thanks
really
for the
appreciate,
conversation.
yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate you too. Thank you for bringing these conversations to your people and the way you show up in the world. It's so important.
Oh, thank you. Also, do you wanna promote anything before we go?
Well, I mean, I think the place where we've come to have this like really sweet relationship is in the context of the Numinous Network. Like, yes, you've taken trainings or other courses with me, but really it's the Numinous Network where we have a general shared values and alignment and all of that, but actually it's about coming together for a lot of contact nutrition, and that creates the foundation for us to be able to have more robust conversations and to like lay down the quibbling over like, oh, they think differently than me, or, oh, we had different language around that. It's like I would encourage people to try out something like the Numinous Network where we do start from a different foundational unit. It's not the theoretical or the political or the philosophical, but that's an umbrella that keeps us all pretty aligned. But ultimately, we're just really focusing a lot on engaging with each other's humanity and offering a lot of contact nutrition and a lot of reinforcement and support. And I will say a lot of members have the experience in there and then they feel hopeful. They feel hopeful about the world. They're like,
It's true.
"Oh, it's amazing how just a little kind eyes from a stranger makes you feel like you can, face the world and, take another step
And
towards the world we all
often
want to have."
it makes me feel hopeful that I'm in a class with 16 people that are all over the world that
Yeah.
are having the same values I have and moving towards those values as well.
Mhm. Mhm. It's very
Um,
connecting. Yeah, the Numinous Network, people will find it on my website, which is just my
yeah.
name. We'll do all the show notes stuff, but I just really appreciate the opportunity to yeah, be able to disagree in such a loving way.
Yes. Okay. Bye, Carmen.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Asteria's Combos. If you'd like to donate to the show and support my work, you can go to kofi.com/asteriasrest. That's ko-fi.com/asteriasrest. You can also buy my digital illustrations or hire me for life or values coaching on my shop, which is on stargirlcreative.com. You can also read about me there and find out anything else about what I work on. For speaking and workshops, you can email me at asteria@stargirlcreative.com. And if you just want to follow me and keep up, follow me on at asteria.elzea on Instagram and Threads. I'm so glad you're here, and see you soon. We're Asteria's Convos, where we're community building the future.